Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Alexander Howell, and today's video was continuation of Merida stuff. And a lot of you have been amazing, and you've sent emails and left YouTube comments or Facebook comments. Most of the YouTube comments are fine. Facebook comments are fine. Some are terrifying. I'm not a bad guy, I promise. Just saying. But anyway, getting back to it. A lot of the comments have been, I'm looking at this house, or I'm looking at this. I'm thinking about renting. I'm thinking about buying. What about renovation? And I didn't want to go through the renovation video because I want to get down to Merida and get you guys inside the place and then post kind of the renderings of what we're planning on doing. So that video is going to come in about a month or two. But so I am planning for all those who have commented and asked about that. But a lot of what I'm hearing is, oh, I wanted to build on the beach. Why did you build in the city? Or you built in the city, but I want to build on the beach. What's the differences? Why? And those are great questions because I'm a beach person. I like looking at water. I have a lake house for that reason. And I think I say that in the video too. I already recorded it. So just don't worry about it. Anyway, I'm a water person. I really like water. I like being in water. I like seeing water. Everything about water is good. The reason that I chose Merida was we stayed for 30 days on a beach house in a city near Progresso called Yucatan. And it's basically, to call it a city is probably not right. It's more of a township because it's just a bunch of houses and a highway. And when we stayed there, I was like convinced for the first few days, why would we want to buy in Merida? Why would we want to buy in the city? That seems crazy to me. Why are we going to be there? And then I started looking at the house for what it was, a beach house. And I noticed maintenance issues, and I noticed, okay, well, this is kind of annoying me, and that's not really for me. And I just thought, I'm not a city person, but these houses, once we'd actually seen some of the ones that have been renovated, they could kind of make their interior courtyard this very peaceful place with a pool and with grass. And I thought, that makes a lot of sense to me, to be around everything and to not have to deal with some of those issues that I'll get to in the video. But there are also huge positives too about each side. It's not just negative one, positive the other. It's negative, negative, positive, positive. So in today's video, what I do is I go over some of the main negatives, some of the positives of beach and city. You will disagree with some of them. You will want to add to the list. Let me know in the comments below. And speaking of the comments below, I hope you feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to, hit the little notification bell. That always gets the YouTube algorithm up and allows more people that are interested in these things to visit the channel. So again, if you don't mind liking and subscribing, I'd really appreciate it. Always feel free to follow me on social media at Alexander from KC, pretty much anywhere outside of LinkedIn where it's Alexander L. Howell. On top of that, feel free to follow me on twitch.tv/Alexander from KC, where I try to stream every few days. I don't have a set schedule yet. Anybody watching these videos, feel free to make fun of me in the comments below. It's completely fine. But again, this is a video where we talk a little negative, but a lot of positive about Merida Beach and City. You decide. So my idea was to start with the negatives. And the only reason that I do that isn't to turn you off immediately to anything. The idea behind it is whenever somebody asks me, do you want the good news or the bad news? I don't know what it is about me, but I always want to hear the bad news first because I want the good news to be the thing that kind of brings me out of it. So I want to get hit with the negative in order to get the positive. So with the list, I just decided to go negatives first. So the first couple of minutes of this video, we're going to get through, and some of you are going to disagree with me in some areas. You're going to think, well, that's a positive, not a negative. That's a negative, not a positive. These are just mine. This is just a few things that I thought a lot of you guys have asked, what do you think? And this is kind of how I've responded. And a few people have been like, yeah, it doesn't matter to me. This is what I want. That's fantastic. That just means that if you view it as a negative, but it's not enough of a negative to turn you off of an idea, great. That means you know exactly what you're looking for. So the first negative when it comes to beach properties is salt water creates a huge maintenance issue. What do I mean by that? What I mean is when we stayed at the house on the beach for a month, and I've noticed this anywhere we stay, whether it's a hotel, a friend's house, whatever it might be, if you live directly on the beach, you're going to have to deal with the salt that comes off salt water, which means that it's going to cause paint to peel. So you're going to have to continuously update your paint, which if you have a lot is going to cost a lot of money. The other thing is, and this is probably the thing that most people notice when they're on the inside of a house, it's how much or how many times you're going to have to replace faucets or really anything metal where there's the possibility of corrosion. And most of the time it's sinks or showers, that kind of thing. So you'll notice that like your shower head will be very, very rusty after just a year or 2 years. You'll notice that in your kitchen sink, the drain may get that way. Now you can help a lot of this with just consistent and constant cleaning, but for the most part, salt water wreaks havoc on homes. And that can go from that to cabinets to flooring, all kinds of different things, depending on the environment, depending on how much wind you get. So it's just something to think about. I look at it as a negative because I know that I'm going to have to invest a lot of money year to year just fixing this, fixing that when I want to be relaxing and staring at the beach. It's not a deal killer. It's just something to think about. So especially in Merida, the second negative that I think about is on the beach. It doesn't necessarily mean this all the time. You can be at Telchac Puerto or Chelem or even Progreso and have a place near or on the beach. But for the most part, where a lot of the lots are available are kind of down the main highway along the beach. And what that means is like the place that we stayed in Waimatune. And I don't want you to think that I'm just only harping on my experience. I know that Chicxulub and those other places do have homes that are, you know, a block from a restaurant, a block from the grocery store, but you still have a beach house. But when you think about the lots that are available to build, they're getting further and further out from Chicxulub and before Telchac. And so in like where we stayed in Waimatune, this is a perfect example. You've got house after house after house after house, which is great. And you still see a lot of neighbors. There's still a ton of development opportunity. The lots were fairly inexpensive when we were down there, very thin, very long lots. But you start to get away from civilization. You start to get away from, you know, what you need. And what I mean by that is you're a lot further from groceries. You're a lot further from a gas station. You're a lot further from just the basic necessities. And you just have to think about it a little bit more. If you want to go out and have a couple of drinks, well, on that highway, for the most part, it's going to be pretty rare that you get a reliable Uber. And I don't mean the driver. I mean, they just might not be available. When you're thinking about building on the beach, just understand that sometimes you're going to want to eat in the house, or you're going to want to have a lot more groceries as opposed to being able to kind of go out anywhere that you want to, or go out and just pick up a couple of things in about 5 minutes and then you're back home after taking a nice walk. You might have to drive. It might be an inconvenient hour when you think about something, and especially if you're like me and have a terrible memory, you're probably going to make a couple of trips back and forth to the grocery store that you don't want to make because you forgot the milk or you forgot the bread or you forgot whatever it might be. So you're a little bit away from civilization, but again, good thing and not so good thing depending on who you are. I have a lake house that's away from everybody. I love it, but I have to remember everything I'm bringing down because there's nothing really close to me. So when you think about a beach house in the US or Mexico, the sunshine, the blue skies, the big poofy white clouds, the sand, the beach, the water, everything is just amazing. And then you watch the news and you see that it's hurricane season and kind of freak out a little bit. Now, when we were on the beach, we got a lot of wind coming from the north. Merida definitely gets a nice northern wind. And sometimes that was amazing, like when we got to our house and it was ridiculously hot inside and we just had to crack the door and we basically had free air conditioning coming in because the water or the wind coming off of the water was cold and intense. But you're going to get that. And there are going to be times when you're involved in hurricanes, even if you don't get the main brush of it, you're still going to have to think about it. For some people, I have family in Florida, they just understand what that's like and they have a plan of action to take care of it. For others, they get hit and they have no idea what to do. It's just something to think about. I don't think it's the most important thing, but I do want you to think about that being in the back of your mind, that a negative of being on the beach is probably going to be a little bit more severe weather when it comes to the fact that you are near the ocean where hurricanes come from. So next is internet issues. Now, this does not mean that you don't have internet out in Waimatune or anywhere else. But what we noticed was that when we were in the main part of the city, when we were in Merida, as opposed to the beach, the internet was a little bit more foggy. It was a little bit more difficult to kind of pick up signal. And I was wondering why. Now, part of this has to do with getting on my tech nerdy side, how you wire your interior network of your home. That's one of the things that we're doing a lot of planning on when it comes to our house in Merida, because you can get good internet. And I want to make sure that I can take advantage of every single megabit per second that I possibly can. So even at a home on the beach where you still will get wired internet, there are still things that you can do to make sure that you are as fast as you possibly can within your home, as opposed to just relying on the signal. And that signal a lot of times comes from a more cellular driven network. And you'll see white tires kind of along the main highway there, the main road there. And for our situation, again, I can't speak to everywhere there, but what we were able to get was passable, good, probably, I assume 50 to 100 megabit per second cellular internet, and they had a modem in the house. And for the first few days, it worked great because they had all the repeaters going. Repeaters are basically a thing that takes your signal from your main router, and it just takes it from a different part of the house, and it just strong signal, and it repeats it down to another part, to another part, to another part, therefore getting you the strongest signal possible, as opposed to everybody just relying on the one router in one room. So all of that being said, what we noticed was the moment that the repeaters went down because we had a power outage, the internet was horrible. It was good before. I wouldn't say great, but it was good before. It was definitely passable, to the point where, because these are large 16 to 18 inch concrete walls and floors, we just couldn't get it. So I would say that one of the negatives is definitely part of it is on you or on whoever you're renting from or whatever your builder says, but you need to make sure that you have a strong interior network. But even the internet on the beach isn't going to be as strong as within the city from our experience. This could change, obviously, but that was our experience. And last but certainly not least, the most positive thing about the beach, and also the most negative thing about the beach, can be sand. It's wonderful. Nothing like going out on the beach and getting your toes in the sand and just feeling there's nothing like that. When you're looking out at the ocean, your feet are in the sand, it's this wonderful feeling that you have going through your body. But a lot of that sand can come inside. And especially when you have high winds, when you have people going in and out, because most of the time your house is going to be kind of opened up, you're going to get it. And if somebody ever uses your pool as their, outdoor shower, first of all, shame on them. Second of all, it's going to cause issues. So just something to keep in mind, that as wonderful as it is to put your feet in the sand, grab a chair, hang out there, enjoy your day at the beach, if you're a homeowner with a house that is very close to the beach and is surrounded by sand, it's going to come in your house. And like we experienced a couple of times, when somebody had left a door open or somebody had left a window open, you get a high wind. If you're that close to sand, it's coming in your house. And when we got there, that happened. And one time while we were staying there, somebody didn't close the door that should have. And we had to do a lot of sweeping and vacuuming and things like that. If you're careful and you handle everything right, it's not going to be as big of an issue. But people make mistakes and things happen. And sand it is. All right, so let's switch the other side to the city. So this is pretty easy. Anybody that thinks of a city as opposed to the beach, the biggest negative of the city is going to be that it is crowded. There are a lot of people, and in Merida, it's no exception. And this is pretty much true anywhere. I mean, it's not the suburbs, it's not the beach, it's not the, out in the middle of nowhere. It's a city. It's going to be crowded. There's going to be a lot of people. Now, there might be quiet areas that you can escape to, and Merida has plenty of them. But as far as your everyday life, it's going to be crowded. There are going to be a lot of people. And because there are a lot of people, there's going to be a lot of traffic. And this is especially true when you get into the central area. When you get into Santiago, Santa Ana, or Chenbech, in some ways, it's going to be full of traffic. So there was one time where we had to just go around a market, very busy market. People are crossing the street here and there. Cars are lined up. There's a bad traffic signal ahead. It was just a bad traffic pattern within this market. It took us 15 minutes to get from the front of it to the end of it. And that was about 3 blocks. And, LA traffic is much worse. Miami traffic can be much worse. But for 3 blocks, 15 minutes seemed like forever. So you're going to get a lot of traffic. It's just what it is. Now, if you can get to those quiet areas, you will have them. Your house could be your sanctuary, but it's just something you're going to have to get used to. And I do want to hit on one thing on this too. And this is going to be kind of the number 3. Merida has very small streets in some areas. I mean, obviously there are very wide streets at times, but it's definitely, it feels like a colonial town in some way, in many ways, but in this way especially, because there are very small streets, very small sidewalks, and there are buses that just fly past you, and you feel like, especially if you're trying to pass somebody, don't pass them shoulder to shoulder. Pass them like this, because it feels like you're out in the street, even if there's a car there or not. Buses just fly down the street, and you want to be safe. And so just know that that's going to happen. Again, some areas are quieter than others. There are some streets where the buses don't run down, but the ones that they do, you notice pretty quick. And it's terrifying. I'm just going to be honest. It was terrifying the first couple of times, feeling like I had a bus mirror about to smack me in the back of the head. But again, it's weighing the charm with some of the things that just happen in a colonial city. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about those streets, because like I was saying, when you're passing somebody on the sidewalk, for the most part, turn a little bit, because it's really small. I mean, this is an area that's really kind of, if you're able to walk really well, if you're, if you're not going to be caught up with some of the issues within the street, it's going to be fine. But you're definitely close on some of those sidewalks. The roads are definitely small, and each sidewalk might be really tiny. But just be careful navigating them and you'll be fine. It does open up at times, but just kind of be aware that, especially if you're on the side streets, be careful, because the sidewalks they were interesting, to say the least. This is probably where most people were thinking I was going to start on the negatives. And it's hot. It's ungodly hot. If you look up the weather right now, and it's November, and just look up November to February, you're going to see that the average is between 90 and 92, I believe. The last time I looked at it, it was. So we're not talking about an area that's, cool in the winter and hot in the summer. No, it's just hot all the time. And then there are a couple of months where it's hot, it's hotter. Now, a lot of the questions that I get from you guys, and by the way, thank you for sending them in on whether it's via email or messages or comments, whatever it might be. One of the comments that I get is about the heat. It's always about the heat. People are worried that it's just excessively hot. Here's the thing. We were there for a month, as I've stated before, and we decided to buy, so that should tell you something about how we felt about that. But keep in mind, if you're there for a long period of time, yeah, it might be hot, but the fact of the matter is you get used to it much quicker than you think you will. Much more quickly than you ever thought you would. I mean, I remember walking around Merida with, holding my kid because he was worn out from the day, because we'd had a long day, and walked probably 15 blocks to get back to our car, or 20 blocks to get back to our car at that time. I was fine. It was a couple of weeks in, wasn't a big deal. I was used to it. And we'd done this before, but the kids got a little worn out because of it, which for us was great. That meant they were going to take naps in the car, but it was just very, very hot. And it's something that if you feel that there's a mental block, what I would say is, if you have the ability to just get down there for a few weeks, you'll see what I'm talking about, that it's easy to get used to. It's just looking at it as a forward, like a future thing, a future idea that really gets people kind of freaked out about it. It's not a big deal. And trying to take the negative into a positive on this one, I mean, this is a city that grew up on this weather. So there are places where it is, there are tall ceilings, the heat kind of dissipates up. There are a lot of open air places, a lot of fans. And by the way, the house that we're building, I'm putting in more air conditioners than should be allowed in a house anywhere. So just know that that's the case. If you're on the inside, there's a lot of AC. If you're not in a place that has AC, it's built for, breezes to come through. All right, and last, and one that I want to explain. So when I say this, don't hate me immediately, because I've already made a video about this, talking about, it was the last video that I made, talking about expectations when you move to a new place. And that is language barrier. And let me explain. When you go to Cancun, or even when you go to Puerto Vallarta, and Cozumel and Playa del Carmen, there are areas that are built around this idea of tourism. And it really feels like that. It's not just that it's a town. There's the town, and then there's tourist town. And you get really used to going to Mexico, especially, as an American or a Canadian or someone from England or any other English-speaking country, you get really used to the idea that Mexico just has a bilingual population and you're going to be fine. This is not that. Progreso, Cholem, Chicxulub, Telchac Puerto, and especially Merida. We had to kind of adapt to the language barrier. Now, my wife knows a significant amount of Spanish. I'm learning and putting a lot of money into to learning more, but there's definitely a language barrier. So if we ever got to that point, it was just getting used to, whipping out Google Translate and trying to see if that worked, or just understanding that we had to figure it out. And honestly, I noticed this the most at grocery stores, because that was where I didn't really run into many people that spoke English. I just would hand them my credit card or hand them cash in order to pay for what I needed, because everybody kind of understood what was going on and we got through it pretty well. All that I meant is a negative by language barrier, or all that I mean is a negative by language barrier, is that if you go into Merida and you think, boy, I've got it handled, I've been to Cancun, everybody's going to understand me. They won't, and they shouldn't have to, but they won't. Some will, many won't, and that's completely fine. But just understand that might feel like a negative. You're in their house. Follow the house rules. All right, we got through the negatives. Let's go to the positives, because they're way more fun. So, living on a beach house. Positives. Or living on the beach, or in one of the beach towns. Positives. You got a beach right there. I mean, go to Progresso, hang out on the beach, tell me what your problems are. You won't be able to think of a single one. There is something to me about water. This is, again, why I have a lake house. This is, again, why it was a surprise that I wanted to be in this city, but I just loved the city when we went. But you're going to experience the fact that you now have access to one of those sound machines 24 hours a day, especially if you're right on the beach. You hear the waves lapping along the shore. You get to go out and swim. You get to just chill. And what I like to do is, it's really tough. I like to stand in the sand and just look out at the water and just realize that my life is awesome. Like, I don't know what it is. It doesn't matter. You get to see water all the time, and the endless plain of the Gulf of Mexico, or if you're anywhere else, the Atlantic, the Pacific, you're on an ocean. It's beautiful. Something about water we are just attracted to in general. So enjoy that, love it, and that's the first positive. Number one. Don't even need to go on, but I will. I'll go on. Okay, the other thing too, and this is especially true like where we were staying, as I've referenced 50 times before, and apologies for that, but where we stayed, there are a ton of open lots that are fairly inexpensive. I want to give you exact prices because it varies widely, but if you're looking to build, there are a ton of open lots to build your own place. I'm sure there are some for sale as well. It didn't seem like there were many. A lot of them were in development at that point, but there are a ton of lots open up for you to build your dream house. And there are tons of architects down there. We, of course, as I've stated in many videos, used Henry Ponce for our city home, but you could design a beach house and basically do kind of whatever you want, because there is so much space still available for you. So I think that's one of the big things about going to the beach if you're thinking about moving, is if you're okay kind of being away, you've got a lot of possibilities. All right, speaking of weather, I told you about hurricanes, and I don't want to freak anybody out, because number one, sea breezes are fantastic. The weather by the beach was nice because it was actually, unless there was zero wind, and we normally had a good breeze, it was actually cool some days. I mean, it did not feel like you were sitting in 90-degree heat all the time. I mean, there was normally enough of a breeze where you could sit outside for a long period of time and be completely comfortable, like you were in an air-conditioned house. That we didn't notice that as much in Merida, just because of the basic construction of the city. We did not notice it as much until we got north, where things might have been a little bit more open. But by the beach, we absolutely noticed, almost from the very beginning, that there is a nice strong breeze coming in, or at least even a light breeze helps. But there was a good breeze coming in off the ocean from the north that just kind of cooled everything down. So even though there might be, a particular season that people worry about as far as being on the beach and weather is concerned, it didn't feel near as hot as Merida did. The other thing too is, and I think this is a lot of personality, is that when you're talking about beach versus city, a lot of times it just seems like, well, you're on beach, that's it. But the way that the landscape is in this area, there are a ton of beach towns, Progresso obviously being the largest of them. But if you go, all the way, not all the way, but, quite a bit east to Telchac Puerto, it really feels like a beach town, kind of sand streets, small kind of common area. but it feels really nice to be there. It's a very kind of interesting place. And if you're somebody like me who normally doesn't like to be around a million people all the time, it's nice to have a beach house where you can just kind of drive and just say, okay, today I want to kind of hang out in Chicxulub. Today I want to hang out in Progresso. Today I want to explore something new. And just to be able to kind of hit those different smaller areas, and Progresso is obviously a fairly good size, but just to be able to go to those kind of different areas and see a little bit of different mentality than you would see in Merida, especially in the central districts. It's pretty nice. It's a very relaxing time to still be around people, but not around people, if you know what I mean. So, yeah. And speaking of beach towns, there are tons. Now, I've already mentioned, in this video, several of them, but they're lining the beach, and they've done a really excellent job in that area of having, these big multicolored signs that, say Merida, or say Telchac, or say Progresso, or say Chicxulub. And it's kind of a nice little adventure to just go make sure that you take a picture by every single one of those on your trip. And so I thought that was kind of neat that there's just, not only are they nice and relaxing and just good people, but they're not as populous, and there are plenty. So depending on what you like, you can find a beach town near Merida that suits everything you need. Now we get to talk about the positives of the city. And the first positive that you'll see most of the time when you research Merida is there are so many beautiful colonial structures in the area, in the city. Now, if you go north or you go to different areas, obviously you're going to find areas that are not your typical colonial look. But in truth, if you're just walking around some of those more central districts, Santiago, like I said, Chenbec, and all those, I won't mention them again, but if you go walking around those, what you'll notice is just a constant that is this beautiful colonial architecture that the city has done a very good job of making sure people stick to. And I think that's ridiculously important in towns like this, in towns like this and cities like this, is just to be able to be honest with yourselves and say, okay, if you want to renovate a house, here's what you need to do for the facade. You might be able to paint it, you might be able to fix it up a little bit, but we want it to look historic because that's the historic district that you are in. And when you think about their main cathedral and that just kind of, Grand Plaza, just take a 360 look around and you'll see beauty that you can't see anywhere else in the world. You're always going to have different colonial areas across the map, but there's something nice about this little inland city in Mexico that's just beautiful and everybody appreciates it. So the architecture is without question the first positive. The other thing, too, is that almost every neighborhood has their own park. And I know that my realtor that was showing us around, not Elizabeth, but somebody else, they basically said that there's a park for every single neighborhood. And the truth of the matter is it feels like that. True or not, I've heard it's true. But just as a caveat to that, if it's not, there are a ton of parks. There are a ton of places, large areas for people to gather and hang out. And this also helps with the heat because most of them have a ton of trees on them. So it just blocks out the heat. You're kind of away from the concrete buildings that absorb heat. It's very nice to just see a lot of greenery within a city because it's real easy for a city to get kind of landlocked into concrete and granite and pavement. It never really feels like that unless you're on some back streets. And that's kind of the point, is that, where they want to show beauty is there. All right, this is something that I like, and it's just because my brain kind of goes from one thing to the next. But every once in a while, I want to hang out in downtown and just see the architecture, walk the streets, see the people, hang out at the parks, and have stop off at a small canteen or go to a nice restaurant, whatever it might be. But one thing that I really appreciate is that within the city, you're kind of a car ride away or an Uber ride away from anything within 10 minutes, if that. If you need to hit Walmart to go buy something, you can hit Walmart. If you need to hit Costco, you can hit Costco. But if you want to see colonial architecture, you head downtown. If you want to see more modern places, you go up north. If you want to go see a museum, you can. If you want to go see a mall, you can. There are all kinds of different things all around Merida. And it really does feel like in 10 minutes, you can kind of be transported to a completely different place. And I don't think that's the case in most cities, honestly. If you go to New York City, you can get to Central Park, and that's nice. And I think New Yorkers would probably hate me talking about their town and saying, you can't make it feel like anything else. But when I went there, whether it was, the financial districts or Broadway, what it felt like to me was just a bunch of big buildings. Beautiful, amazing people, amazing culture within the city. But that's just what it felt like. Even in Kansas City, we have a couple of areas that you can get to, but it's a big city geographically. So it's not like you can go 10 minutes and find a completely different thing. You got to travel a bit. And still it might feel a bit the same unless you have the Country Club Plaza, which is amazing. But anyway, I digress. It feels like you can see a lot of different things within 10 minutes from one place to the next. Now, I won't comment on traffic, but in an Uber ride or something like that, if you've got 15 minutes, you can go from colonial setting to a very modern place. And that's pretty cool. All right. And kind of piggybacking off of that, there's just so many things. And this, I know that sounds weird, but you can go to, our house, I think, is perfect for us because 2 blocks away, actually it's like a block and a half away, is the Chenbech Market. It was just renovated not too long ago, and it's kind of open air, nice. You can get very organic, natural things. You go up another 2 blocks, you can kind of get your staples, your corn, green beans, all kinds of random things, anything you would think about in just a grocery store or a store in general. And then if I need to, I can take probably 10 minutes or 15 minutes from our house and I can hit Walmart or one of the other shops that they had down there. I can hit Costco. I can go to the movies. I can pretty much do anything that you could anywhere else in the world. That's not to sound insulting or negative. It's just nice to know for somebody that's looking to move, especially, that there's this beautiful difference, but you've got some places where you have similarity too. I mean, I just started laughing because we were walking through a mall, and it's on the very northern part of the city, like right before you get past the highway and go to Progresso. We're at this mall, and I look out of one of the windows at the mall, and there is a Texas Roadhouse. I don't really ever go to Texas Roadhouse, but I know a lot of people that do. I just thought it was great. It was like, okay, I can enjoy all of the food from this area, and I can do that for 2 weeks. But if I want to go to Texas Roadhouse, I have the opportunity. And we travel enough where I know that that's not something out of the ordinary. There are McDonald's everywhere in the world, but it's just nice to see the differences in places and know that you've got access to everything. I mean, we went for 10 days, I think 10 days, maybe it was just 7 days to Costa Rica in 2008. And we flew into Capos, which is this town kind of in a beautiful valley, and then we drove from there to kind of the beach town, which was Manuel Antonio, similar to Merida and Progresso. We weren't going to go see any movies in Manuel Antonio nor Capos. We weren't going to get a McDonald's there. It was definitely way out there, and nothing was coming. It was just what you had was what you got, which ended up being perfect because it was an amazing place. But just to kind of parlay from that, Merida is not like that because you can kind of get the things that you expect, that you think about, I should say, while also getting all of the benefits of being in that amazing town. So just something to think about. And the last thing is, anywhere else in the world right now, you're pretty much able to get what you like there. It's pretty rare that you can't. Now, obviously, there are certain parts of the world that, whether it's, war, turmoil, whatever it may be, that's not really true. But for the most part, you can go anywhere in the world and get air conditioning. For the most part, you can go anywhere in the world and get internet. These are not things that are, specific to the countries that you would think about. What I loved, though, was when I was looking up internet in Merida, I can get 500 megabit per second internet, and that's, basically half of what I have now, but that's all that's way more than you even need technically. But I just thought it was amazing. So I was like, okay, so what's the possibility now? And then TV, how am I going to get my TV and my internet? And I'm going to take this, I'm going to take that. I'm going to get every air conditioner that Merida has for sale. I'm going to put them all on my house, and just so I can be as cold as possible. There's nothing that you can't have. And it's not that we didn't think that, because we've obviously been to Mexico. We've been all over the world at this point. But it was just nice to see you can have anything you want. And that's kind of it. I'm sure somebody's going to write into the comment section like, you can't have this. Okay, fine. I'm wrong. But if you, and there are tons of us out there, but if you want to start a YouTube channel, or you want to go vlogging, or you want to do something like that, you never have to worry about, oh, well, I'm going to have 25 megabit per second internet like I have at my lake house, which is satellite internet. And it's slow as can be and is capped and everything. It's not like that. Same thing as here. Easy. The basic thing is the culture is incredible. The culture is amazing. The people are amazing. Obviously, anybody who's a foodie is going to talk about the food is amazing. But it's also nice, just honestly, coming from somebody who obviously works with technology all the time, it's nice to know that there's no sacrifice, there's no negative. You have everything there that you have right here. And depending on where you live, you're a 6-hour plane ride away. All right, guys, that's the video. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to know anytime one of these new videos comes out, or if I ever go live on YouTube, just click the little notification bell, and YouTube will inform you that I am here and ready to go. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media. My main social media these days is Instagram, but you can follow me there, or Twitter, or if you'd like to watch me live stream as well, you can go to twitch.tv/ and it's all Alexander from KC. For the most part, no matter the social media platform, send me an email, alexander@alexanderhowell.com, or if you want to connect professionally, just linkedin.com/n/AlexanderL Howell, and I'll have all of that in the description below. But again, thank you so much for watching the video. Really appreciate all the subscribers to the channel and everybody who's been able to send out, whether it's a comment or an email or a Facebook comment, whatever it might be. Thank you guys so much. Peace.